Welcome to our channel, where we bring you new stories every week. And now, on with the show. The Edo period was one of the longest-lasting eras in Japanese history. Over 250 years, Japan changed little. Shoguns ruled, emperors were powerless, and life continued much as it had for centuries. Peasants farmed, artisans crafted, and merchants sold their wares. Samurai patrolled the streets, both real and imagined, keeping everyone in line. And in the background, servants swept the floors, their lives unseen, their faces unknown. Whatever it is, you are the only one who knows how to stop it. The hours are long, but you get used to them. When the moon climbs high, that's your cue to start preparing dinner. When the first rooster crows, that's your sign to wake the family. You've smelled countless flowers in your life. Cherry, plum, chrysanthemum, each has its own perfume. But the tatami holds its fragrance the longest. You come to know the house and its needs by heart. You straighten one last scroll, arrange one last cushion, wipe one last table. Now you can finally leave. As you step out into the night, you brush against a leaf. It's dry, brittle, yellow. You pick it up and stare at it for a moment. You don't know what flower it came from, but for a brief second, you hold its color and shape in your hand. It feels good. Better than being called diligent, better than being called quick. To be called beautiful would be best of all. But it's a quiet world. Few notice, fewer care. Your beauty fades with the dying light. You straighten your back and walk away. You know when the plum extract needs replacing, when the latrines must be emptied, when the eldest son needs his bath prepared. You anticipate these things and take pride in it. After all, that is why you are here, to serve, to make the world run smoothly. What exactly that means will depend on your situation. For some, it's as simple as placing the cup down more firmly. Others must put more strength into sweeping. Some need to clean the rice cooker more often. Your solution is in the details. Once you know what they are, the rest is up to you. And this anonymity offers an opportunity to ask what life was like for those who lived and died in the shadows. It wasn't uncommon for servants to enter a household at a young age, sometimes as young as 12 or 13. Then there are the bows to welcome guests, to express gratitude, to apologize, and each is done with perfect form. Straight spine, bent knees, hands at the sides. You know the exact angle to show proper respect, and when you fail, there is no excuse. They'd been working for years already, mostly in textile work, but might have also worked in the fields or as peddlers. You learn to read these signs on the faces around you, but the master's face is the hardest to decipher. His smiles don't reach his eyes. You know that? His calm voice can hide a tightening fist. You know that too? So you memorize his face. Every line, every scar, every blemish, and you watch it constantly for any change. Because the master is unpredictable, you must always be ready. Ready to respond, ready to adapt, ready to serve. His pleasure is your reward. You hear their geta sandals on the tatami mats outside the door, their steps muffled but clear. You look up from your work, a new assignment, maybe a new chance to prove yourself, or a punishment, your master. He opens the door and enters. Time to bow. Only your eyes may show surprise. But your back and legs are trained for this moment. You kneel quickly, then turn, kneel and bow to the host. Show your back and head. Drop your hands and open the top 2 buttons of your cotton kimono. Breathe out and try not to look up. If he calls for you, you answer with, "Here, servant, at your service," and wait for further instructions. This is your life. A series of precise movements, postures, and attitudes. Life as a servant was better than most other jobs for women, but still far from easy. Men could be beaten, all of them could be dismissed on a whim, and then there was the quiet menace of shame. It hung over them always. A visitor enters the house. The greatest threat in this world is the threat you cannot see. The eyes. Master's eyes. You know his gaze is on you, measuring you. Even when he turns away, you feel his eyes on your back. Servants often heard praise, but rarely knew what they were praised for. And you'll never know if your mistakes were noticed. But when they were, the punishments were swift. Beatings were common. For women, there was another fate, far worse than pain: shame. Now, Listen closely. Something is coming. You don't know what, only that it must be stopped immediately. Most servants specialized in certain tasks. Some cooked. Some took care of the laundry. Others cleaned the latrines. All important work. All stinking work. You have memorized hundreds of bows. There's the casual bow when greeting your peers. There's the bow to show respect for elders. As a child, you learned to read faces. You saw how sudden anger could contort features, how sorrow could pull the corners of a mouth down. Do you remember the smell of tatami? How it takes on the scent of plum extract? How it clings to the fresh scent of tatami. It's been a long day, longer than most. I want to start this video with a quote from Yukio Mishima's book, The Temple of the Golden Pavilion, which says, "All things in Japan are made of silence." Now, I don't know if that's true, but I do know that in early modern Japan, the architecture of silence was a crucial part of living. These buildings spoke not loudly, but in quiet ways. They did not rise tall or tower boldly, but bent low and stretched wide and breathed in stillness. Strange small rooms tucked between guest quarters and family shrines, storage cupboards and latticed windows. About to tatami in size, they were too small for sleeping, eating, or ceremonies. One of the most important parts of any feast is the meal itself. And in the Edo era, the preparation and presentation of food were almost as important as the food itself. While the elite enjoyed fancy imported foods, the average person ate mostly rice and fish. Rice was the staple of the diet, eaten at every meal, and fish was a common protein source. They might have eaten grilled mackerel with rice and miso soup or brothy codfish cakes. The common folk also enjoyed seasonal treats like cherry blossoms in spring and persimmons in fall. However, for the elite, these seasons were celebrated in much more detail. Cherry blossom viewing became a whole event with picnics and poetry. Seasonal ingredients became status symbols. And for farmers and merchants, their crops and trades directly influenced their menus. Farmers ate seasonally and locally. They grew rice, vegetables, and fruit, and raised chickens and pigs. Merchants, too, had diets tied to their trades. Fishermen ate fresh seafood daily, and tofu, soy sauce, and sugar were popular items traded along the waterways. In short, what you ate depended on where you lived and what you sold or grew. Preparing food was a carefully choreographed dance of knife strokes and gestures. Servants in Edo Japan were an unseen, unheard presence. If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting me on Patreon or by making a one-time donation through the link in the description. Stay tuned for more content. Thanks. Bye. Their world was backstage. They moved through hidden passages and waited in silent rooms. Meals were eaten in near silence. There was little chatter, no loud music. A single lantern glowed dimly, casting long shadows. A tray sat untouched on the floor, and 3 figures knelt motionless, lost in the silence. They are part of a ritual, a shared breath held in reverence. In this world of hushed tones, they are not just workers. They are weavers of silence. They are keepers of composure. And as the masters sip tea, they glide like phantoms, replenishing the water, placing the incense, their footsteps muffled by custom and care. They exist not to be noticed, but to ensure that the world of the elite continues to spin in serene tranquility. In noble households, each movement was deliberate, even ritualistic. Here, a chef carefully slices fish with the precision of a calligrapher, each slice revealing the perfect pink line. The table setting is an aesthetic masterpiece. Each item has a designated place. Ceramic bowls rest on lacquer trays. Chopsticks are laid in precise angles and tiny towels are folded into origami swans. As the feast unfolds, the presentation of each course is a surprise. Some dishes are like paintings. Others are sculptures. A masterful chef can turn food into art. Remember, in Edo Japan, there were strict rules of aesthetics, and food had to conform. The meal was not just food. It was a visual poem. It's too cramped for sitting comfortably, yet large enough to stand and wait. Food choices were a way to show off wealth and power. Only the finest ingredients were used. Imported fruits, exotic spices, wagyu beef, and the fattiest cuts of pork belly. Rare delicacies like fugu pufferfish were served to impress guests. In fact, serving fugu was a status symbol. Only the most skilled chefs were allowed to prepare it due to its deadly poison. Imagine being served fugu. You know that if the chef makes a mistake, you might die. That's the level of risk involved. The rarest ingredients came from abroad. Silk Road spices like cinnamon and cloves added exotic flavors to local dishes. And Chinese porcelain, the height of luxury, held the sauces and garnishes. A meal on Chinese porcelain was like wearing silk pajamas. It was all about comfort and style. These fancy foods and settings might seem far removed from our everyday lives, but they tell us a lot about the values of Edo Japan. This love of extravagance is reflected in many aspects of traditional Japanese culture, such as calligraphy, flower arrangement, and of course, food. Some scholars believe these were meditation spaces, others that they were staging points. Areas where servants could wait silently, just outside the frame of a conversation, a screen sliding door, or paper wall. Occasionally, these rooms were used to store records, secrets, or even bodies. Never seeing the street outside. From the outside, the residences of the Edo elite seemed simple. Sloping roofs, paper walls, tatami floors, they were tools. Entire rooms could be reshaped in minutes. A single grand hall could become 3 small chambers. It was a stage, a mask, a trap. Every grain of wood remembers. So now I want to move to the topic of how meals were eaten in silence in the Edo era. But before I do that, I want to introduce you to something that you can use right now to remember everything you've learned in this and previous videos. About Japanese history, before I get back to the topic at hand. But in order to understand that, we first have to go back to the beginning. Ancient Greek and Roman historians sometimes described themselves as the interpreter of nature. They believed their job was to explain the world around them. But what they didn't understand was that people experienced the world differently. You see, the ancient Greeks believed that humans were born with ideas about the world already in their minds. They called these innate ideas schemas. These are mental frameworks that help us organize and interpret information. Without these schemas, we couldn't function, couldn't make sense of anything, enable us to quickly categorize things based on prior knowledge. Like when you meet a dog, your brain instantly categorizes it as a 4-legged furry creature that barks. That's because you've encountered enough dogs in your life to form a schema. But schemas aren't just for animals. They're for concepts and experiences too. A guest room could vanish behind a screen as if it had never existed. This fluidity was power. It allowed the host to control what guests saw, where they walked, and what they heard. One could appear humble or wealthy or absent simply by how the walls were arranged. It was an architecture of illusions. Even today in preserved homes across Japan, some sliding panels lead to nowhere. Some staircases rise into ceilings. Some doors, when opened, reveal only another closed screen. But step inside, and you found a different kind of complexity. Not one of ornament, but of structure. A home designed not just to shelter, but to listen, to observe, to conceal. It was especially important in the grand houses of the Edo era, which we're exploring here. Last year, restoration workers uncovered a sliding panel. It's not strange in itself. But behind this panel, there was not a room, but an empty shaft. A vertical tunnel of wood about 2 meters high and 90 centimeters wide, open to the elements connected to roof beams above it, its purpose unknown. Some believe it was a secret passage. It's a space where a guard could stand, unseen, to monitor the corridor below. Others believe it was a hiding place, not for people, but for sound. A resonating chamber to amplify the whispers of those in nearby rooms. In Edo-era households, privacy was not assumed, even among nobles. Even the thinnest paper walls carried sound easily. Footsteps, whispers, even the rustle of silk robes could be heard through the walls. So architecture adapted. There were hollow walls designed to allow trusted retainers to walk between rooms. Some homes had listening panels, usually installed in hallways, wooden slats that could be removed to spy or eavesdrop without being seen. And in some estates, the servant corridors ran parallel to guest rooms, allowing unseen access for food, tea, or information. So let me ask you this. How do you build a house that listens? So we'll continue our look at the Edo period today by considering how the buildings of this era, particularly those belonging to the elites, were designed to both create and preserve silence. We begin in Kyoto, in the reconstructed remains of a daimyo estate, but there was also something else. And not all walls were stationary. Fusima, the iconic sliding paper doors, were more than elegant decor. In a world where politeness was law and silence a weapon, the home was not just a shelter. Okay, so now back to the topic at hand. As we mentioned earlier, meals weren't just about taste and aesthetics. They were about social standing too. Next, I want to address how eating habits changed depending on one's social class. Finally, let's discuss how the daily life of a servant was marked by silence. As always, thank you so much for watching. And so, our march ends here. In a shadowed hall, behind a paper door, with footsteps receding in the dark, you have walked the floorboards of history tonight. Felt the weight of unseen lives?
Out.
From buckets of well water to whispered judgments, from hidden corridors to silk-lined meals, these are the forgotten marches. In this room, where dust motes dance in the fading light, where the air is thick with stories untold, let your imagination run wild. And as the sun sets on another day, I invite you to close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let the tranquility of this timeless place envelop you. Imagine the countless footsteps that have echoed in these halls, the lives lived and lost within these four walls. Feel their presence around you as you drift off to sleep. What secrets do you think these four walls are hiding? What whispers of the past do you hear in the stillness? Perhaps the murmur of a forgotten language, the rustle of silk garments, or the squeak of a wooden shoe. Maybe you can almost feel the weight of a bygone era pressing down on you. Or perhaps you only feel a profound sense of peace. Not of armies, but of ordinary people, walking slowly through time, leaving behind nothing louder than a breath. Thank you for walking with us. Here where the past is always present, the silence speaks volumes. Wherever you are, whatever you feel, know that you are part of this story now, a visitor in a forgotten place. Dream of cobblestone streets and gaslight, of horse-drawn carriages and bustling markets. Let the sights and sounds of another era transport you to a world where time seems to stand still. Rest now, traveler. Your journey through time has come to an end. We hope you have enjoyed walking the forgotten miles with us. If you have any thoughts or reflections you'd like to share, please leave them in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you found this experience meaningful, we invite you to join us for more adventures in the past. Thank you for walking with us. Sleep well.